for those roll call, please.
Mangus is on via Zoom. Dean,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
Robo,
Here.
Darrow,
Present.
and Keaton. No. He's our new one. He don't know yet.
I think there was a possibility he was going to be on. Gentlemen, the story is though they can't really participate as members of the PC, so Kim is on as a public citizen. So just lending an ear, she couldn't be here while I'm in the chair seat tonight. But she is on, so she will be able to keep up with me. If we have questions, I wouldn't hesitate to ask her, for public input, if you will, but just due to the rules of open meetings, she can't participate. And that may limit, or when we look at the bottom of the agenda, we might want to postpone some votes, I think, until we get one new member and more of a full team before we're doing things like election of officers, maybe some of the bylaw approval. So that's just a suggestion for the agenda. Is there anything else on the agenda? It's very full. Obviously, the package is stout tonight, but we will try to, touch these issues and get right down through it. We'll see how far through new business we get. But are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Those three housekeeping type things can wait till March. Because if, those would be the good things to drop, because the new fiscal year starts in April. So it's not like
Well,
urgent.
it sounds like we need a larger group to be able to make that vote anyway, so.
Yeah, I did check the bylaws tonight about things like officers and bylaw adjustments, and it's 2/3. And if we're at a membership of 6, I think, right now. We could
Right.
with 4. But
7. It's based on your total, what it's supposed to be.
you sure?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to vote anyway.
Because you can't do it.
Because 4 isn't enough. It is 2/3 of 7, then it's 5. So I'd like to leave them on the agenda. We can touch them. We can talk them on. We can certainly do the review of the bylaws if we want. But again, I would suggest we postpone any votes. Any other discussion on the agenda?
I'm just going to request that everybody pull your microphones up close so
I
the
can't hear
people in the
what you're
audience
saying.
can hear.
The microphone's quite a ways away from you.
Thank you, Carl. Don't be afraid to ask.
Maybe I'll bring in my medallion little microphone and I can set it by whoever and then I can hear them really. So,
Pass.
it's a thing that hooks onto my hearing aids. The other, I can hear on this one now. But I think if your microphone was a little closer, I might be able to hear.
I'll keep my face at it. I apologize for the mask. I am not 100%. It's not COVID.
Or I'll move over
But
here.
I'm going to stay masked up just for everybody.
We appreciate it.
Any conflicts of interest on any of the agenda topics for any of us tonight? With that, we'd like to open it up for public comment. Kind of a smaller crew than we've had, but thank you for coming. Name, address, please. and-
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Don Glenn, 9792 Bluff Trail, Williamsburg. I come here tonight. Some of you I've met. For those that are here and in Zoom land, I am going to be the Republican Party nominee for the May 3rd special election to be held to fill the open trustee seat. And I just wanted to make sure I introduce myself to everyone on the board that I hadn't met yet. Over the next few months, I'll be meeting with many people as possible to gather their thoughts and ideas and share with them my background with the hopes of earning their vote for that position on the Board of Trustees. For those, again, here today, the short version of my background is that I've had leadership roles in the 30+ years in the convenience store, automobile repair, gasoline, retail industry. During that time, part of my responsibilities included the site improvements and building construction of facilities. And I just like to acknowledge the very important role that a planning commission played in those projects. And my respect for those that serve on a planning commission, because frankly, it can be a challenge to sometimes oversee the planning of a community, the land use regulation, and the community development that's necessary. And so with that, I look forward to meeting as many people as again, and hopefully I earn their vote to represent the board in the trustees. So, thank you.
Thank you for stepping up. Appreciate that. Any other public comment this evening, ladies? Thank you. Public hearing is not applicable this evening. We don't have any. Approval of minutes. It is pretty stout. Lois, could you summarize? You mentioned that we had a few name tweaks on that, and I just want to make sure those get communicated before we move to approve these.
Yes, on the, probably the first and the second public comment. Maybe Brett didn't public comment on the second one, but anyways, Brett Bowerman has one T in his name,
Thank you.
and I had Wade Miller, and I understand it's Wayne Miller. I meant to look that up, but thank you.
Also, I think you put Ellen Bolin, and I think her name is Chris.
Oh,
Oh, Chris is. Yeah.
okay, I'll fix that too.
Yeah.
You know, that does look odd now that I'm looking at it because it's Alan and Ellen.
Yeah,
Okay,
her name is Chris.
okay, I'll fix that too. He's going to have people in the know.
So Jen, it's a pretty stout December 3rd review. Any other issues that folks saw through that? Lots of public comment, certainly.
I didn't see anything.
Nothing jumped out at me either, and I would entertain a motion to approve with the changes to the names and the public comment. Anybody?
I'll make that motion. Approve with the changes to the names and public comment section.
We have a second?
Yep, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Do roll call.
Yep.
Just because of the Zoom.
My computer is jumping all over the place there. Sorry. Dean,
Yes.
Darrow,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes,
Magus is not here. Keaton is not here. Robel,
Yes.
Motion carries, minutes approved. Item 8 on the agenda is just a correspondence notice from Kalkaska. As of the end of the year, December 28th, that they are in the same throes that we are working on their master plan. So a standard requirement for public notice, sharing with their neighboring communities. Any discussion on that? I will get into reports on item 9, zoning administrator. Did Bob check in?
he did not.
Okay, so we pass up the ZA, Mr. Hall. Chair, just briefly from the chair, just with some discussion with Kim over the course of the week. She knew she wasn't going to be here, so we talked just, on a few topics, things that she had received. Do know that the marijuana and the application process is still a bit up in the air. I'm not sure that's well defined, but it does, continue to apply pressure to us to get through this ordinance that we've been working on, just to clear things up for the whole of the community with regard to those. I don't have a lot of, insight and information as to exactly what's going on. I think there's been trying to get two agreements, with the board and the township leadership with regard to the first applicant, if you will, which we know is the Hubble property. But I really don't have any insight into where that's gone or what the status is. Not on our business tonight anyway. I'm just saying it so that we know that we still have a need to keep the press on the marijuana ordinance. I'll leave that yet for the chair. Board rep, we do not have one. I will use that as a segue though, to be on the lookout as we get into the bylaw review, that there is a proposed change to allow a seventh member to be assigned that is not on the board. So be considering that as we get down to the bylaw review. Would it be better to have a full crew here with no board rep, or give the township the option of doing it that way? So that if they're short, we don't necessarily have to have a hole in our commission. So it's just something that's been proposed. We'll discuss it when we get there. But it sure would be nice to have a rep that is playing both sides there. It would just improve the communication that's been lacking. ZBA, anything, Carl, on?
No, I just want to tell you, first meeting, all of us was, they were elected the same officers. I just briefly told them what, they were working on the marijuana ordinance, finishing that up, and I don't recall.
No business before the board, though?
Nothing official,
Okay,
just kind of a meet and greet.
thank you. Reports complete. On to our unfinished business, which has been substantial and ongoing. We have 3 items. Master plan review with our consultant contractor working with us to generate input to our master plan. We've got the proposed ordinance that we could take a look at, and Article 12 setbacks. Is Chris available to
He
give us a
is.
summary? Chris, the floor is yours. What are we seeing come in this month? We're actually close to 2 months.
He just went off.
Scared
He probably meant to hit
to death.
unmute and clicked I'm out of here instead.
We'll give him just a second to come back. If you'll notice in your package, I think the input for the master plan begins on page 11. Some of that we've seen in the past, but there's a big demographic section. I certainly think it's an improvement over what we've got in the current master plan. It is 2019 versus the 2010 data that we had in the original. And that runs down to trying to get to the page number.
And he's back.
Hey, Chris, you back with us?
Yes, somehow I got bumped out, I think right at the wrong moment. So I'm back with you.
It's been a couple of months, and I know at our last meeting in December, we had kind of the first round of input from you. Can you tell us where we are with regard to your efforts on the master plan?
Yes.
And a summary of the data that we have in the package this time out?
Yes. Where we are at currently is that you have 4 new sections in front of you. The transportation section, the demographics section, 2 other newer ones from December were the economic development and the blighted areas sections. So essentially there are 4 new chapters in front of the township, all 4 of which are required by state law to be in your master plan. And to date, I haven't received any comments from anybody. And I heard a few weeks ago that perhaps a special meeting might occur in the future to do that face to face with the planning commission to get input. But those 4 documents are out there, and anytime, any day of the week, send me by email your comments, but we really need to discuss this stuff in the meeting like this. And if there's going to be a special meeting, let me know. So where I'm at now is I would like to get comments on those 4 things, and I have 2 other things coming your way. So I don't know whether to send them to you or not. My inclination is to send a zoning plan, which is required this month in the next couple weeks to you for your review. And also I want to get input on a survey, a new survey of the community of the township of master plan issues, values, directions, goals. And that I really want to have people give me input on the questions. The questions that I bring are going to be better if they're informed by your knowledge of living in the community. So, essentially we got 6 things on the table here and haven't received any input. So that's where we are currently.
Chris, thank you. Can I get an answer back to Chris on the specific question about does he slow down? I know where my opinion lies, and that is no, keep the foot on the gas and keep coming and put the pressure on us to get through this. But that's just me. Do you think we're getting to the point that the scales are going to tip and we're going to feel overwhelmed? I kind of want to keep him rolling. His comment about the special meeting, I think is aligned with Kim, is a desire to start picking up master plan meetings between regular scheduled meetings as a means to consume and, dialogue on this input. Your thoughts there?
I would like, wouldn't hurt my feelings to see some of those special meetings for that purpose, so that we can concentrate solely on this information and be able to be specific on questions. I have some of the stuff on the transportation. I have some notes that I need to forward on to these guys there, but I have some other questions for some of this other stuff. And being able to put that forward is what we need to do.
I also tend to work better on the, single agenda item meetings that where we can come off the, the fray of our big packages and
Yeah.
multi-topic agendas and just, it is a, it's a time burden, but I don't know that we're going to get through the master plan and consuming everything that Chris has got coming our way without stepping into these. Your thoughts?
Totally in agreement. The master plan is extremely important and we should stay focused on that. And I think that he should just keep giving us as he gets it, because we're going to get to it when we get to it, regardless of how much he's given us, but it needs to be there. So when we're ready, but focusing on it so that we can take care of the other things that we are terribly behind on during the standard meeting, I think is extremely prudent.
So far, so good. Carl, you in align with that we maybe have some special meetings bridging our regular schedules and make it master plan only, so we can come in with just that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's things that we need to find out what the population wants for the next 20 years. So we craft a master plan, and then that then tells us on some of the items that we're backlogged on what we ought to be doing. I was noticing the population was kind of what I thought is 20 to 40 years olds are a large portion of it. And we need their input because they're going to be here the longest time. So
Well, it sounds like something that Chris is going to float to us in the next month is that notion of getting back out with a survey that we can have input on and get some of that feedback that you're talking about.
And I was a little overwhelmed by the state mandated road plan. You know, I know we probably have some roads we need improved, but I don't know that we need all kinds of paved roads and sidewalks everywhere. It doesn't seem to make sense in our township. So that needs.
Yep.
That's, you know, those two items can be handled pretty quickly. Well, not the first one.
Yeah.
Input from the community.
And if I might, Mr. Chair, if I might be able to speak to that. We've never really had a chance to get into this, but complete streets is a notion that's required. It was put in the law, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, but for a township like Whitewater, it doesn't mean sidewalks everywhere. It just means that you consider all the different modes of transportation with any future transportation decisions. And most of your roads are not going to require sidewalks. I mean, almost none of your roads. So I don't know where that notion came from, but that's not what we're talking about. And that's not what complete streets is. But where things like that matter, it's about safe crossings. It's about considering the fact that there may be bicycles on county roads. And you as a township are not, you know, building state or county roads, but you're working with those entities to make sure that, you know, your vision is being, you know, built and planned for. But they're very well aware of these requirements as well. There's nothing MDOT is doing or the County Road Commission is doing that's not complete streets. So I don't want to get hung up on that. And Mr. Rubel, thank you for saying that, but that is not something that I want to get hung up on. But we are required to put that in the plan, that we're going to consider all forms of transportation, pedestrian and otherwise, with our street network going forward in our plan. And if it's not in the plan, it can't be done. So that's why we have to put it in the plan by state law.
I think, Chris, it's not to, you know, throw the anchor out here and start the dialogue, but it's some of the language that came with it when there are statements like, you know, all streets. We're a very literal community when it comes to what we're saying, and we tend to, you know, think that words mean things. When we put something in the master plan, it has to be what we mean, and we don't want to have to qualify it later. So that was the feedback that I got, you know, from people that were seeing this for the first time in December and seeing that, you know, we call it strong language that we don't want to have to dance around after we put it in. We don't want to have to explain ourselves at the first public hearing with the master plan and say, well, we really don't mean what that says. We don't ever want to say that. So that's where I think you know, it's not like consideration of complete streets is not the problem. It's the language has to be very specific, say what it means, and don't imply anything else. Is kind of where we came at, you know, and our master plan is pretty, you know, our first attempt was pretty squishy, I guess, and a little light in a number of areas. But at the same time, we can't, you know, have the pendulum swing too far the other way where we're, you know, pulling the language out of some other communities that just doesn't make sense here. So I think the feedback is we want to make sure that it means what we say. That is what we mean.
And and the language, and if I might, the language is not being pulled out of any other community. And I will do a sweep. I thought I did it, but I'll do another one and make sure that this, you know, all streets kind of notion is not in there. And I totally agree with you. That's not what we want to say. That's too strong. And we want to do something different that's more honed to the township itself. So I'll do a read through and make sure that's not in there. Yeah, thank you for that. Are there other comments like that? That's really, really helpful.
I think we're aligned. You know, we knew these first couple of inputs were going to be a little tough to consume for us when we did the first one internally, and everybody's kind of got a homegrown mentality. So we're not meaning to push back. We want to align and make sure that, it's very specific, and we want to be able to defend it. That's the biggest thing, is when we have this big public hearings and the master plan that we come up with right now, this big rev, we want to be able to talk very straightforwardly with our community on it, and not having to feel like we're qualifying anything or defending anything, just straight language. So that's our mission. It sounds like we're aligned on, dropping in some meetings. But I'm as bad as any of us on consuming this stuff outside of these meetings. We can't be reading it in here. We've got to redline these things, decide as a PC how we're going to get that to Chris, whether it's everybody just goes to him, or we're taking it through a clearinghouse of the chair or somebody else that's designated. We're not going to get through this if we don't do this as homework and get our thoughts out
Come back with their thoughts.
before we come into these meetings. 2 hours just goes poof if we're trying to read through it. It's really got to be done outside, and we're just coming together to approve changes and formalize it. And I think we need to be on a 2-3 month plan to try to do that with these 6 hours of additional meetings. I'll defer to the chair, Kim, when she gets back on how to go about that, but I think we're aligned on needing extras and make it just that. So we're not
Yeah,
dealing with the noise of the rest of the stuff that we have to deal with.
yeah. More stuff's gonna come up, just
Okay.
like the place down the street.
Yeah, and it's not our fault that the agenda gets full with, needs of the day.
Right.
That's just the way it is. But we can carve off the time, I think, to deal with this one by itself. Chris, I appreciate the input. Do you have anything else for us? I think we're in agreement that we'll take it upon ourselves to start doing our homework. We'll start coming up with how we formalize our response back to you. And we're expecting some special meetings, which are basically, mid-month for us, drop-ins for the next 2-3 months at least to address this. Anything else?
Okay, very good. Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's really good. I appreciate that clarity of where we're headed. And I will work on these other next two things, but I'm going to hold them until we're ready for those two topics. So thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion, master plan? Thank you. Marijuana. Oh, the big nugget. We got our. That starts just for package awareness on page 55, I believe, which is it's proposed zoning ordinance amendment number 79. We have some red lines that we could review tonight. They're not, terribly substantial. Would you guys be okay to step through those? It's, 6 pages and a half a dozen red line items that we have on there.
Yes, I think we should step through.
Okay. The first red line is on the residential developments. And it kind of lists out the residential developments to include subdivisions, condominium developments, PUDs intended for residential use. And the red line parenthetical is, does it need to address apartments or other residential areas? Do we feel like we need to get in the weeds there? Can we put just a general kind of a catch-all, maybe? I mean, you could end that sentence with, or other developments intended for residential use and kind of get a catch-all in there.
Oh, there it is.
Is it, Carl? It is a big package.
No,
I
there's, right
apologize.
there, it says Carl Darrow in there for
There you go.
me, I don't. Right where need to address. Yeah, right in there. Okay. That's in the program. Yeah, when I made a comment there, when I click on it, it says I'm Carl Darrow making the comment. That's in the computer.
So it's like your two computers combined.
He's Alex. No, I'm Carl Rubel, but the computer program has my name wrong in it. So I'll take that up with Cheryl maybe. I don't know. I just found it, where it was located, but yeah, I agree with.
Thoughts? Do we leave it as is, or do we need to expand that definition to include and other developments or something like that?
I think I liked your suggestion.
Be all right after PUDs and planned unit developments, comma, or other developments intended for residential use. Kind of
That
covered.
sounds pretty good, guys.
Cover future endeavors.
Okay, the chair does have the change control, I believe, on this document, so just know that I will forward these and get them incorporated for the master document. Okay, we're down to 56 in the package. What is that gray is just removed? So we're confirming on page 57 that section 3 is coming out in its entirety. I think we made this one last time, just validating it. Yep. That's the commercial. We decided it's not going in there. So that wasn't really a red line, just confirming the removal of that. The next red line, again on page 57. Special use permit standards governing location and operation. And there is a statement of intent proposed that says it is the intent of this section to provide for the regulation of commercial, medical, and adult use marijuana facilities and designate such facilities, establishments, and operations requiring a special use permit in order to maintain the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents and visitors of Whitewater Township. That is another item. I want to take a pause here, and it's something I could have brought up at the chair report. This was the one other topic that Kim and I just touched on, because there's this and there's later on in the agenda, the special use permit. It's the first new business agenda item, A. There is concern, I think, with the township attorney that the special use permit process that we have needs, it's a really subtle thing, but legally the attorney is concerned that the special use doesn't necessarily point back to the site plan review for one of these facilities and tie the two together to say that the special use application and the special use permit process and the site plan review is where all of the, all of the requirements that the PC is going to, review and place on somebody that's asking for this permit, that ties it all together. That is one of the segments that I think is trying to address this gap, this hole that the attorney's concerned about. And the other comes, I think, in the special use permit process. So it's just trying to tie these two together, say, hey, this is what and how we get through this process. And we're just trying to make mention of it on both sides of the fence, basically. So that is what that statement of intent. I don't see that it, necessarily adds to the ordinance. It doesn't change any language or intention that we have in there. It just says, hey, that's what this section does.
Ties it to the special use permit.
Where are
Correct.
you
Say again, Carl?
at? What page are you on?
I'm sorry, it's 57 in the full package.
This doesn't have page numbers. Oh, great.
I'm sorry, I'm catching that first non-read part of that paragraph still has commercial C in it, which is in conflict, I believe, with the fact that we removed section 3, is it not? So I think that is another red line that's required, is we need to strike
Where are you at?
Right below.
paragraph E and the statement of intent that's read. And right below that, the very first sentence says grower and processor businesses. Any special use permit application in the, and the
Yeah.
first
Yep,
The
that needs to
first
be-
district needs to be struck,
Yep, exactly.
right?
Yep.
Can we go back to the red line topic at hand, which is that statement of intent? Any issue with having that in there?
No.
I don't.
No, yeah, I think it should be.
Carl, are you okay with that statement of intent
Yes.
to lead paragraph E? Okay, we are all aligned. Again, closing the gap a little bit with the attorney. And that is the last red line we had in 79, I believe. My copy. Anybody else see anything?
On the following page,
Looking, thank you.
this will be the second line B. I mean, aren't we at the same thing there? And an SUP for marijuana business may be
Yep.
granted as principal use in commercial. Do we
Yep.
need to strike that one too?
Thank you. Good catch. I'll do a little search here and scrub the rest, but yeah. So that is, just to get my paragraph straight, A1B. Yes. Again, strike commercial. Thank you.
The next page, commercials mentioned on 6. I know I'm not supposed to.
No, I appreciate it. It's just appreciate you looking. So
6A.
what is, that's B6A. Thank you. B6A. Any others? That's red lines. Go ahead.
I think that covered it.
Where's the next document in the package?
Should be Article 12.
Yes, I believe it
Commercial
is.
Just trying to see if you have page numbers somewhere. There should be page numbers. Oh, right here. Here's your page. number.
Oh. Thank you, Lois.
Thanks.
Carl, didn't mean to, yeah, and don't be afraid to slow me down if we're getting lost.
Well, it's a little tiny.
That was
It's
a li-
tiny.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was a luxury. It's kind of important. Okay.
Okay, the topic, unfinished business, item 10C is Article 12 setbacks. That picks up on page 63 of our package. Article 12 is building sizes and yard requirements. Get 2 pages in, you'll see where the red lines start. In the ag district with regard to commercial campgrounds. We
I
know
don't know,
why.
I have a question here.
Yes, Carl.
Are we allowing commercial campgrounds in ag districts? We are?
Which is the nature of this red line is in response to the preliminary site plan review we had, I believe it was November,
Yeah.
where we had visibility to the site up on top of the hill behind the gas station to the south, where half of that proposal was on ag. The southern half of that from about the middle of that parcel to Crisp Road
Well, I
is
understand that.
ag,
I understand their proposal.
but that was a commercial campground.
Yes, I understand, but my question is, why are we allowing any commercial campground in an ag district? Is that something that is in our master plan, that is in our ordinances now? I mean,
I
if it's
believe it
not
is special
there,
use in the,
I mean, just
in the
because somebody
ordinance.
wants to put one doesn't mean we have to let them, that we want that in that area, because I noticed it's not just it's all of it. They're putting out campsite sizes in commercial and industrial. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. That we would be having campgrounds in those zones. I mean, is it now legal, acceptable for them to have it? I know they came in and said, yeah, we want to put one here. But
the reason they
Is there
proposed that
anything
is
in our
because
ordinance?
it was allowed. It is allowed.
Yeah.
okay,
And this response and these red lines with regard to
okay,
the lot size dimensions
Yeah. okay.
is whether or not we should be trying to put that allowance, that special use allowance in an appropriate context.
Okay, I looked up part 125, the public health code for campgrounds, and it says on a campground, a campsite spot, you can't just say so many per acre, because the size and the shape of the area being proposed, you can't just say this is an acre and we allow 1, 2, 3, 4 sites. The minimum site size required by the state is 15 foot wide on a road and minimum of 1,200 square feet. That goes back to 1978. And another thing I looked up it says campsites can be either from 5 to 15 per acre, depending on a lot of things. So another one is a modern campground I went into, because today the campers are a lot bigger. They're longer, they're wider. You can on a 20 by 20 for just a tent. But the minimum, and I got the whole list of sizes from the campground at Traverse City. And essentially they're running from 25 to 30 by 40 or 50. So you need, as far as an individual campsite, I don't see how you can say per acre, so many per acre. Because it's going to depend on that whole campground, the hills, the lakes. I think individual campsite has to be done by the way the state has it. You know, it says 15 by 1,200 square feet. It needs to be wider than that by today's standards. I looked at all the ones in town and they vary, but I'd say essentially they probably average out as 30 by 40 or so, and that's an old campground. The recommended size today is 25 by 50 for a new campground. So for individual campsite, we ought to be, I think, specifying by the size of the campsite. The amount per acre is going to depend on the topography. You could have somewhere there's 0 on an acre because of brush and everything, and another one that could have, 5 or 7 or 8. That's kind of my take on that portion of it. The setback from the road and everything else. I don't have a problem with.
So I just did a quick Google search out of curiosity, and it just said on average 10 campsites per acre. If you go up to Timber Ridge, they have different categories. They have pull through for the bigger campers. It just kind of depends on, like if you're just going to pitch a tent, obviously you don't need all that space.
Correct.
So.
And they have modern campgrounds, so they're up to 50 amp service, depending on.
Oh yeah, all the new
And
campers
the
are 50 amp.
And the state rule for the campsite, you have to have a 20-foot wide road that each individual campsite butts against. So yeah, then after, depending on how many campsites, you have to have showers, toilets, that kind of stuff. So there's a whole lot of things go in to the state regulation. But if we're just talking setback and campsite size, everything else, the developer is going to have to meet the state standard.
Right.
But I
Right.
think we have to recognize today, those campers are a lot bigger, and they're looking at, again, people bringing them in. There's a minimum size has to be wider than what the state minimum says. And the other thing in there that it says here on one of these documents for a camp model, it says 650 square feet, putting the order. The state maximum is 400. So I don't see how we can say 650.
Are you talking about state campgrounds
The
or
state-
commercial campgrounds?
The
in the
commercial,
state?
state commercial campground requirements. It's part 125 of Public Health Code Act 368 of 1968. Got pages and pages. So I'm saying, if I'm reading that right, we can't say 650 feet. But it says with overhang, the state one says the walls,
Yeah. So
400 square feet minimum, maximum.
for living, you mean
Huh?
400 is for living space. So,
Yeah.
so if you have 400 actually living space and another 150 with a front porch.
Well, yeah, and there's also a minimum, I think, 15 feet on each side clearance to the lot line. You can walk around them.
Yeah.
That's for, all kinds of campers. So
Yeah.
I don't see, from looking at that, as far as the individual campsites, I don't see how you can say so many per acre. You need to talk the size, and then the topography is gonna tell the people how many they can put in with all the other things they have to do, the roads. You can have an acre you can't put any on because it's swamp. Another one is a flat ground, you could probably put 10 campsites on. But that's,
So was there anything in the cabins per acre? Because it seems like 2 cabins per acre is not that many.
no, that's not.
I mean, I just thinking about
As
Timber
far as
Ridge.
A cabin goes, it's a different animal.
Yeah, okay. But in here, one of the red lines is 2 cabins per acre for a commercial campground. And I honestly don't know. I know that Timber Ridge has lots of cabins. And they have tons of cabins. You ever been over there, Carl? Timber Ridge Campground? Should go over there sometime. It's a pretty cool layout. But I have, one of my campers is 42 feet long and it has 4 slide outs. And it maxes out Timber Ridge's pull through campsites, and you have to have room for the bonfire pit plus 2 cars.
Yeah, the recommended, even for a tent in the, Sun campsite, talks about all the modern campgrounds. We're talking like a 20 by 20 with an additional side on the side for your table and fire pit.
Yeah.
For tent.
Yeah.
And then when you're talking about pull-throughs and, you know, all these things, you know, if you're gonna design a campground, you're gonna take all that, they're the same, the minimum size the state says is 15 foot wide, abutting against the road, 20 foot wide, and 1,200 square feet, which would be, but if you had 30 by 40, that's kind of what the campground in town is. They're all different sizes, but they average it out.
Yeah.
And some of those aren't really big enough for today's, you know, double wides and things. So I don't know how you're gonna say per acre.
Can't, I mean, I
I
understand
don't
what
see
you're
how
saying
that
about
works.
create a lot size or a minimum lot size that you.
Right, minimum
But
lots.
can't we also have a restriction of no more than whatever number we pick campsites per acre? Can't, I mean, it's our zoning, right? Can't we make a determination? We don't want any more than this, whatever.
Well,
number we pick?
again, I think we're gonna, I don't know how that would work. I would want the legal. Because your site isn't per acre. It,
Well, you're absolutely right about the topography is gonna rule where they can and can't put a campsite. But on any one given acre in that parcel, can't we say no more than this many?
20.
you
No
can-
more than
you
20.
can- Who wouldn't tell you 15 is the maximum. You couldn't put 20 campsites on an acre. 15 is, they say.
If
from
they're all
5 to
tents.
15. 5 from 15 is what I read is, not in the state law, but in another site that I went to.
But you realize, Carl, that 20 is almost 2,200 square feet. And the
But
one
you're-
that you're talking about, the 15 foot on the road and 1,200 square feet.
You gotta have a 20-foot wide road. You've gotta have facilities in there.
Yeah, but we're talking 2 different things. There's a density question of how many can you put on, and if you're designed it right, and you can stick 20 tent style campsites off a road, you can do that. But then there's the overall density, which is kind of where I think you're leaning, is that if you've got a 20 acre site, how many sites do we want on that to account for
But what
open
size?
space? But I'm just saying, in general, if it's 20 tents and 20 RVs and 20 pull-throughs or whatever, and you want to limit it to a 20-acre site plan and you're like, look, we want 5 acres open space and you've got to have road and your utilities and all of that is going to start taking out so that the overall density might be something that we want to specify from one side of the, request. But then the other one is, look, if you want to put all your tent sites and kind of jam them in one little area and there are 20 of them, 2,000 for 2,200 square feet apiece, that can be a pretty snug little community of tent campsites. But on the
What would you want
whole,
it to be?
Hmm?
You have a minimum campsite size. That
what I'm trying to point out is your minimum for a campsite for a tent is 1,200 square feet, and he just proposed 20 on an acre, which you're saying you can't do it. And you're going like, well, actually 20 on an acre is a lot bigger than the 1,200 foot that is the state mandated minimum. You got a lot more at 20 per acre. Not every acre is gonna maybe put 20 on
Does
there.
not limit per acre. That's a industry kind of suggestion. I don't know that I saw anything that said in our regulate, it says size 15 foot wide and a minimum of 1,200 square feet. Now, it could be 30 foot wide and 40 feet deep, that's 1,200, or you can make it 50 or 60, you can make it bigger for upholsterers, say. And they're saying 15 by what?
15 by 80 gets you to the
80, okay, that
1,200,
gives you a pretty long, narrow say.
but that gets you the 1,200 square foot
Right,
that is
yeah,
also.
but you don't, that's, if they had just said, it just. Because you can have one part of that park's gonna be able to accommodate larger campsites and they're gonna wanna do it. And then as well as, like you say, if you got tent community, I think if you look at the back of the state park along the bike trail there, there's a lot of small campsites there for tent campers. I think I saw a couple in here that were. In the 20s, most of them are 30 and 40.
Is this tune-up of this section though geared towards the next special use request that comes in here for a similar or
Well,
that parcel?
That's going to be really restrictive if you only say, 4 or 5 per site, but you can do that.
Striking me, I've just been
But
doing
keep in
some,
mind that the state minimum size is 15 foot wide, 1,200 square feet. That's minimum.
do you know how many that is per acre?
It's 26.
No, it's not,
I came up
because
with
you've got to have a road in
36.
there.
math wrong.
You've got
36.
to have roads, you've got to have
You
facilities.
take an acre, 43,560 and divide it by 1,200 square feet, that's
Yeah,
36
that's
Okay.
right,
units.
but you can't use 100%.
That's why I
for
said 20.
campsites. You can't do that. You have to have roads, you have to have facilities, dump facilities, you have to have bathrooms, you have to have showers. All these other things are in there and there's specifications in the state law.
I don't think
Maybe the
that
site.
proposed site up there had any.
No, they didn't.
No, they had- that
facilities
was-
Whatsoever.
No, they had
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
It was like a parking lot with a bunch of
It's
campers.
it's the RV park model, like the one that's at the resort. Hidden off 72. You been down there?
Yep.
Been in there a couple times
Yeah.
with somebody that showed up from out of the area, but that's that model. Although I think they do have,
They have
So-
like a club or something
Yeah,
there.
What,
Yeah.
that big campground down there,
the RV campground.
luxury campground?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that, I've been through that. There's a lot of, they have pads in there. They have
yeah, it's very high end.
yeah, it's very high end and they're big sites. I don't know what they are, but they're big and for motorhomes. Big, and they have to have a minimum size to even go in there and those I believe are rented out.
And they're owned.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, you can
Yeah.
buy them or you can lease them. I've looked
Yeah, that's
into
a
it.
whole different.
Your camper has to be like 3
Yeah,
years
this-
old
this-
and cost $500,000.
Where I was Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I think what these guys were getting at over here was they wanted to cater to all the people that are coming for the equestrian. And they just wanted to put as many campers and bodies in a space as possible. Like literally, my opinion was they were gonna make a gravel parking lot and just start parking campers for the summer for the equestrian festival. That's what I got out of it.
They still have to meet, as far as I know, they have to meet the state requirement.
I don't know how many acres Timber Ridge is, but they have 2 bathroom facilities with showers and washer and dryers, but they have 1 million camping spots, but you know,
I think I divided that out. That back part was what, 55 acres, was it? Where they're gonna have the campground?
Something to that.
And I divided it out by the number of campsites. It came to 5 per acre. 5.4, I think it was.
Average.
but that was with nothing else, right? You mean, that was with nothing else. That was campsites only.
Yeah.
No
that was
green
the-
space, no
55 acres,
bathrooms,
that says
no
campsites.
playground.
They said like 300 and,
Campsites.
what was it,
Yeah.
305 campsites, something like, and I divided that out, and it came to 5.3.
Which isn't very many.
No,
When you think it's, I've been doing some sideline math on that very notion. That they have, basically, it was, I think the back half is on the order of 40 acres. Even if you said they were only using half of it, because the other half were roads and utility runs
but I
or
don't think you
whatever.
could see on there how, what size each of those campsites was.
Well, it was
Yeah.
more, it was
Looking
more
at
than
it,
that too. It was the fact that they're gonna do apartments or townhouses or something
Well,
there.
that was
So,
front
the other
half.
part.
yeah, but that was,
Not ag, that was commercial on the front side.
right, but that was still, that's more cars, more kids, more dogs, whatever.
That was 30 some acres, I believe.
Okay. So, I mean, so what are we doing? What are we trying to nail down here? That like, we can only have so many campsites per acre, so many cabins per acre. You can only have so much camp usage out of such percentage of the 40 acres or whatever. I mean, so only 50% of your parcel can be campsites and the rest has to be bathrooms and playgrounds. I mean, I don't really know.
Well, you
Not,
you ought to read the state. Act, you know, it tells you all kinds of stuff in there, what you have to have for a commercial campground. I don't see how
I'd be
we
willing to
can,
bet
we can't
that
do any less
proposal-
than that. I don't know that we can do any less than what the state.
Sure we can.
We
Wanna
can
restrict-
restrict more than the state.
Yeah, we can. I said less. You can't do less than state. State is, like I said,
I would be
And, you
suspicious
can't
if
do
those
more
guys didn't
on
have
the,
state regs
on
nailed
the park models.
Right, in
It
that
says
proposal.
in there, the park models are 400 square feet, the walls. Now, if you have an overhang, how much of that 650 we have in there is overhang?
It's surprising how much the state allows. I think the discussion on hand is, are we trying to put something in the ordinance, modify this section of the ordinance to ensure that the next application
Well, I think, you know,
falls in
yeah,
line with what we're, thinking it ought to look like?
yeah,
I mean-
there's definitely got to be some minimum guidelines
I mean,
for us.
maximum of 4 per acre. I guess we can put anything in there we want, as long as,
Well,
I
you've
think
got-
somewhere along the line, you have to be saying on any commercial campground, it has to meet all the minimum of all the state requirements, and then we can go from there if we want. Based on, our community, we want less.
Again, Carl, I'm suspicious that those guys did exactly that. They wouldn't have come in here without.
Yeah, I
that.
agree.
And we looked at that proposal and went, are you kidding?
Yeah,
How do we smartly tune up our ordinance so it
Right.
looks like what we would think
We would want to see.
we would want to live next to? That's
exactly.
how I'm thinking about it. I mean, their bigger problem wasn't even to me, the campground. It was the logistics and complete lack of awareness of putting 25% of the township residents coming in and out of 2 driveways on M72. That was the bigger issue with that site and that plan. But I don't know, do we want to get in the commercial campsite definition business? I don't know what it needs to look like. We didn't like that one because of where and how and. you know,
Yeah,
fact
and the
that they-
density of it, I didn't see on there what it said the size of each campsite was. But if you,
Well, if you did the math and said there's 5. you
five,
know, it's-
and it's 55 acres. It said that it's 306 and some sites. So you'd have to divide that into 55 acres, I believe it was.
Kind of a tough issue, guys, to decide what, you know, if we're gonna allow commercial campgrounds in these districts, what do we think they should look like? I mean, you think of examples, there's one on Brackett Road, just past the creek on the right.
Ever flowing waters.
Yeah, you hardly ever see, you don't even know it's there. when you Drive by, hardly ever.
They're packed in there too.
How many campsites are there? I have no
There's
idea.
at least 100. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
I rented one of my campers to some guys that worked at the equestrian festival there. They come back every year, and like 90% of the people that were there were there for that.
Mhm.
And they must have some bathrooms there, maybe in the main house or something. I honestly don't know, but it's really not that big of a place. And those you're pretty hard pressed to get 2 cars along with a good sized camper in their campsites. I mean, they're packed in there. There is kind of like a green space. Of course, it's surrounded by trees and the creek running through it. It's actually kind of nice. But it's what they have going is a completely different thing than, say, what Timber Ridge does. And I don't like state campgrounds are kind of different also because state campgrounds don't have full hookups and you only stay for 2 weeks at a time. Whereas the ever flowing waters, they don't have full hookups and most people are only there for a week, but some people stay all summer. But the old guy that runs a place goes around and drains people's septics and then takes it to his main thing. And I think that there is a dump station you can pull up to, just like the Whitewater Township's campground, kind of the same thing. You pull your camper around to dump it. Timber Ridge was nice because they had full hookups in addition to the dump station, but the full hookups. I lived there for 2 years in my camper. Which East Bay Township didn't appreciate, but Timber Ridge is a completely different thing. That place is massive. I mean, they have hiking and biking trails that are hooked up to all the other hiking and biking trails. So from my perspective, my idea of camping isn't just in a gravel parking lot, for a couple of weeks. It's being there with friends, family, going biking, going snowmobiling, whatever. I mean, I had a lot of toys at the campground, but in the wintertime, I had my snowmobile, I had my truck.
Well, I've done both. I've gone down to Florida for a month and stayed in one of their campgrounds there with park models and part of it, and camper 20-foot trailer like mine for another, and they have full hookups. And then I've gone to just regular campgrounds. And I've been salmon fishing over at Orchard Beach State Park and some of the other places.
And they probably all had like a playground and
Yeah. So
whatnot. And these guys didn't have any of that. And I don't know. I mean, are we, like you said, are we in the campground zoning business? I mean, are we going to say, all right, 25% of any campground has to have X amount of green space and hangout space? And, max, I like 20 campsites per acre because we know that if 25% of that 40 acres or 55 acres is going to be green space, I mean, things have to be economically gainful for whoever's going to, put in a campground. We can't have the restriction so much to where they're not going to turn a profit.
Well, I said the maximum, I was reading is 15, from 5 to 15 is the range, depending on a lot of things.
Okay.
But do we want to set a number, hard number per acre? I guess we can do that. Maybe 4 or 5, or you, like I said,
Well, 4 or 5 is not enough campsites per acre.
well, then that kind of
I mean,
restricts what people are gonna do. And that's for, my lot is about an acre. Slightly less, and 105 by 400.
so how big is your house? Do you have 1,500 square foot
My
house?
26, 700 square feet. And then I have 2 other outbuildings on the property. Pole barn garages.
Well, it sounds like you could have at least 5 campsites in addition to your house and pole barns
No.
and still have plenty of space.
No, it couldn't possibly do that. You could have maybe 2. There's a septic field out there. There's the lakefront. You can't go near the, so many feet back from it. Then this 15 feet, my house takes up all the 60 feet, there's 15 feet clearance on each side required, and I have less than that actually.
Okay, so I guess,
But
so let me be clear on like what you say about with the roads and stuff. So obviously you're not just going to take an acre and say, okay, you're only going to have 15 campsites because you have to have a road on that acre. I
and you have
mean,
to have a facilities.
well, right, but you're not just going to do that per acre. You're going to, if you have 55 acres,
I say it's,
you can have 15, 20 campsites per acre, but 25% of that 55 acres has to be green space and
Mhm.
roads.
Mhm.
And I'm just throwing out a number. Honestly, I don't know.
Yes, I propose that we're not we don't have our head around this. and
I know,
No,
no, not at all.
Progress on this.
yeah,
tonight.
it would really help to read that state requirement as a starting point.
Yeah.
And then go into the, that SunCam is for modern campground. I Googled that, and that's the site that it was brought me to. And that's a lot of different things. And they're talking about bigger campsites, curves, lots, 55, I think, degree curve, so a big trailer camper can get in there, and all that stuff that we don't need to consider. That's whoever's gonna do it. All we're saying is when you have a certain acreage, there's minimum sizes. I don't know if you want to do it by acre, or like I said, they were doing it all by campsite size. There has to be a minimum size campsite today because of the
Because,
size.
right,
And there can be smaller and sites like in the state parks. You go in there, if you got a tent, they take you to one spot, take
Right.
you to a great
Yeah.
big spot.
yeah.
Hopefully, they don't take you to one full of water, which I've seen them do. I had an Airstream and I was mad how I got treated. Because when I went there with my tent, they just told us to go to the spot over here, Well, when I pull in with the Airstream, they, we'll just follow us. We'll take you right over there. And that made me mad. I said, wait a minute, I don't need you to with this, but I sure could have had a little help finding a good spot with the tent. In some cases they did. They gave you the-
Yeah.
Other places I was treated different when I pulled in with the Airstream.
This is tent camping if you don't have a moat.
That's right.
Need the full experience, kids. Stop whining.
Yeah,
Everybody's done that. Can I
think I
suggest
said
that maybe we
state
try to do a little
official-
reading on this? I mean, if this is something we're gonna address, and I think with that, last proposal that came in, kind of got us back on our heels a bit.
Yeah,
I think it's worth considering. But it's, it's a complicated thing to solve that puzzle and get it in the ordinance in a way that, allows somebody, and I'm not for restricting folks. I mean, that ever flowing waters, did you call it? I mean, that to
Yeah.
me is just absolutely nothing wrong with somebody taking a parcel and tucking a site.
we have that glamour campground back here. I went through there a couple of times and before they were working on it, I couldn't even find it. And then now they're working on it. You drive back in there and you got campsites and there's different topography. Okay, how are you gonna tell guys so many on an acre? This acre you can have 3, this acre you can have 6. And
Point that
then that
we know
place
what we
there,
don't
it looked
want.
like they were
Right.
putting, from that burial, that, my God, it looked like they were.
I think what we should do is say that you can't have a campground off of M72. I mean, granted, but because they were going to be off M72, and I understand this clearly, especially after listening to everybody about the road over there.
Yes.
Monroe.
Yeah. And I know what a mess it is in the summer, even with the luxury campground, because they don't really have enough turn lanes there, but it's not that busy of a place versus it sounded like the proposed campground was going to be busy as all get out and was just going to be a mess. And so to have something that large really needs to be in a place where the traffic can be accommodated, which is not M72. I mean, I don't know. I can't think of anywhere along here, really, maybe where it's 4 lanes, but even then.
A campsite, a campground anywhere in the township is gonna dump out on 72 sooner or later.
Sure, but if it doesn't have to clog traffic and accidents, and I mean, especially that was just kind of a nasty spot right there. And especially, if it was gonna end up on Crisp Road anyways and bothering all those people. But there's got to be better. I'm not that familiar with the larger parcels or possibilities, but it stands to reason that either those people are going to come back or somebody else will.
Like
In the
you said, a
foreseeable
commercial
future.
Campground couldn't be bigger than a certain size because of our township's roads. Infrastructure that you could only have a 40-acre campground. Say, it's a wrong number, something like that, or smaller 20-acre.
Well, again, so what if there's like a 200-acre parcel somewhere around here, but it's not going to be all campground? Like Timber Ridge isn't all campground. I mean, they have all their little trails and little hangout spots back in the woods and storage and, plus like the pool, they have a huge greenscape there. I mean, they have a pool, they put up a thing for kids. I mean, their green space, there's probably 10 acres on its own.
Wow, they have 400 over. The state campground has. I didn't notice that. Tells you the number. $480 plus 480. Hard to believe, but. 480.
Suggest we
I
table
rode my
this until
bike
we
through
get some
there.
more
Yeah.
information.
Yeah,
Yeah,
move
I
on.
think
Yeah.
it's good to.
we've been at it for a while.
Okay.
With concern reading the state requirement, I think we need to be better than that.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow, and today, and they, like I said, this modern campground is talking about, the really big stuff. Oh, sure, the big stuff, but you just, you need bigger camp space. What, how many per acre? Like I said, it depends. there's a pond in the middle of that acre,
Yeah, and there should be a pond. Why wouldn't you want to have a pond? I mean, if a campground's gonna come in of a massive size, it should add to the community, not disrupt the
Does
community.
our township want a massive sized campground because of our roads and?
I would love to have a campground out like somewhere that hooked up to the ORV trail. That's be my dream for me, you know,
Yeah.
but
Well, each individual developer is gonna buy the piece of the parcel that works for what they're trying to develop, and this particular entity was gearing towards the equestrian.
and max profits and
Right,
Yeah.
and just because we would like to see one out in the state forest somewhere, doesn't mean that's where the developments are gonna put it.
And-
So
and-
our
and the
ordinance has
rec-
gotta be,
You can have different requirements in the rec area than you do in agriculture, and certainly don't want any in the industrial or village. And so I'm saying is, okay, if you're saying we have to allow them in the agricultural district. But you know, what's if somebody come on and buying another 100-acre farm and put in another one, they can do that too. You can let allow 1, 2, 3, I don't know which.
farmland's gonna end up in somebody's hands because the farmers are having a heck of a tough time.
and it's the way of things. I mean, everywhere you go, old farmland is now developments. You know, so you're gonna see 100 houses that all look the same but different
Yeah.
color, or you want a campground or what?
Back in that recreational area back there, you need better roads too. You know, if you start having these.
Yeah, but for example, if there's 300 campsites, you know, back off Broadmead, versus, you know, at least the people who are pulling out and pulling in aren't gonna stop cars going 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what my thought was. If you have something on M72, you're not, there's no way to get that many campers that are slowing down, pulling out 55, 60 miles per hour. I mean, you know, I know people go faster than that. Not saying it.
And then you have, you know, say you have that on US 31 going into Traverse City to the state campground.
Yeah, but they
Right,
have
right.
the suicide lane
Yeah.
and 4 other lanes.
Right.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Yes.
New business.
Yeah, and I
11A.
just suggest that, you know, look at that. The state requirement.
What's the name of that website, Carl?
Well, what I did is I just Googled Michigan State Commercial Campground Requirements, but it's called Part 125 Public Health Code Act 368 of 1976. Then the other one I looked at for, say, okay, well, what's a modern? I put in modern commercial campground, and there's several that things referred me to the Sun Camp site. And it lists pages and pages of suggestions. So some on campsites, others on facilities. The state has all kinds as far as water, sewage, all the requirements depending on the size of the campground or number of campsites. You know, how many flush toilets do you need per campsites or outhouses on a rustic campground? So
Homework. 11A has been overcome by events. I believe Bob has indicated that we expect that new business on M72 to come next month with a site plan review as opposed to the preliminary that we were expecting to see tonight. So they've just changed their approach. They're not going to take a step with the prelim. They'll just be here when they're ready to go. If that's next month, we'll see it then. But that was the send. Sen Brothers package that you
That we got
had
handed.
added to yours.
Yep.
And it came a little bit later. So that's item A, to be reviewed when it comes before the PC. 11B, meeting day through April, Wednesday or Friday. I'm gonna suggest that they stay on Wednesdays. That's kind of the normal day. You guys, anybody else have a need to change gears? And
Just
and
go
keep it at
Wednesday,
the end of the
Wednesday
day?
now?
Yeah, I think so. So I don't want to be changed for me. So if everybody else is okay with staying with the Wednesday, which is kind of been the standard for the PC, we'll keep it there and not muck up weekends.
Oh, so we're not gonna do the Friday anymore then?
Correct.
Okay,
Going forward.
sure. Would it go back to 7 or stay at 6?
I think it would go back to 7 and pick up our standard, which will come up on item E if we want to review that. I don't, again, think we'll vote on these those last two, but we'll look at them.
So is this, I mean, we need to nail down when we're gonna start doing the master plan.
Correct. And I kind of want to leave that for maybe a communication with the chair
Okay,
after this meeting.
okay,
So that the two members that are not here tonight can weigh in. And then maybe it's a quick email that for everybody to coordinate the first one.
okay.
Would be my suggestion, as opposed to trying to put something on the calendar without their input tonight.
Okay, okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So that's
As a general rule, they're usually like 2 weeks apart.
right.
The next one would be the 16th. And I know that that date is open
Thank you.
at the township.
I may take that as a, how is that?
What-
Would
that
would
works
that
for me.
work for everybody?
Yeah.
February 16, a Wednesday,
Pardon?
Wednesday, the 16th.
Wednesday, the 16th. Sure.
And of course, it's the middle of the month, Wednesday, the
What time?
16th in March too.
I think it's
7.
What's
7, it's 7.
because if that works for everybody, I would propose that to the chair
Let's, yeah,
as the first
As the
one, and
first
then we
one.
can start locking up schedules after that. So 16th Feb, Wednesday at 7, first special. Master plan only. Again, this is not a formal meeting. That is just something I'll take to Kim as a proposal from the group. Fair?
Is it, are we going to be violating the Open Meetings Act?
Not with appropriate notice.
No,
No.
Oh,
we'll
We
just,
just-
that meeting we're only gonna discuss
yes.
master plan stuff in that meeting.
Okay.
The public is still welcome.
Yep.
But that's the only agenda we will have for that meeting.
How much, what do we need? 7 days? Right?
2 days.
2 days.
It's longer for other things, but when you're doing a special meeting, it can just be, I think like 48 hours, 18 hours, I think, actually.
I don't think that would be an issue to pick that up next week with Kim, have a quick email lab to confirm that that date works for the two that are not in attendance right now and lock that up and get it publicly noticed. Okay. Item C, Article 25. Special use permit guidelines. I'll bring up that is on page 69 of the package. And this is the other half, right? We talked the little statement of intent that was put in the ordinance. This is the other half of that tie up to try to tune up. And you can see the red lines. Because it's two things in this Article 25. Site plan review and special. Yeah, we called it in the title, special land uses. So what's added now to 2510 is the notion of special use permit, authorization and procedures. So we're just trying to formalize it to say that hey, this is how we step through a site plan review to issue a special use permit through our application process. So, other than the title that's tweaked there, 2510, first red line is the addition of, when we say with conditions, we have to approve or deny all site plans and special use permit applications submitted under this ordinance. So again, we're adding the notion of special use permit being the same part of this process as a site plan review. So we did it there. There's a strike in the second sentence, each action taken with reference to site plan review, because again, we're striking that, or the proposal is to strike that, because it is not just the site plan review, it is both of these things. So each action taken shall be duly recorded. Just means that every time we give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs up with conditions, we document it. Those applications applies to both, which require PC review will then be submitted. Blah, 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 blah. And then the last red line is the last sentence. Yeah, and that's just, I don't know, seems to be maybe a lawyerly thing to say that we're not just talking about the fire chief, road commission, drain commission, all that, or their successors where applicable, meaning that you're getting the right folks in the county administration aligned with the plan if it's required. So it's just broadening the recommendation seeking to include or their successors. Not sure what the Eagle comment is.
Yeah, I'm
I
not sure
think
what
it's
that means.
because Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ,
Yep.
is now called Eagle. And before that, it was the DNR. And I think that that's the point in there, or other
Next year, it'll
successors.
be,
Depends on who's governor.
Oh, so that comment is specific to the MDEQ.
Yeah.
Right above it,
Or Health Department, they change names, MDHHS now.
right?
Well, if it's called Eagle now, then that's what we should call it, shouldn't we? Instead of calling it something that's been called in the past.
Yeah, there's no reason not to try to line up with the current. Yep. Environment, Great Lakes, and energy. So yes, I guess is the deal there. Okay, so let's wrap on that 2510 paragraph. I think that encapsulates the desire to not just be a site plan review, but it's an application for one of the both, site plan review or special use permit. And we're trying to normalize that through that whole paragraph to make sure that our review and our acceptance applies to one or the other. And I'm fine with the red lines and the strikes.
I am too.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, on to 2511. That's a full strike due to the fact that Article 27 is no more. On to 2521, more substantial red line here. This is a pretty stout one, so let's chip through this. Special use permit application requirements. So putting a few additional items as part of the application process, first being that the PC review the proposed projects for compliance with the master plan. it's a little redundant, but I understand why pulling it out. Item B there is evaluation of the impacts of the proposed project may have on the general health, safety and welfare of the township, which is in the master plan. But, okay, we'll pull it out and state it specifically. Additional engineering studies may be required as deemed appropriate by the PC to evaluate a proposed project's impact on the power grid, traffic, water, sewer, and any environmental concerns.
X the LY on that.
Environmental, I would think, right?
Yeah, X the LY.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We okay with C? Before we move on, that's it's,
Pretty straightforward.
yep,
Well, you would do apostrophe S on township.
which paragraph there?
On
C,
C,
C, addition.
apostrophe S on township.
Oh, there's two Cs. That's why I'm having a problem there.
oh, yeah, sure
Okay.
is.
Oh,
CC,
oh my
it's on
God.
CC.
All right, so C and then D, evaluation of townships. I agree. Now that I'm looking in the right place. Those will accommodate any anticipated increase. Procedures. A public hearing shall be required for all special use applications. That's been in the Article 25 all along. It's got a new title to say procedures. Why does that end with no? Notice it said here used to be held shall. That's basically our public hearing notice reference. Yes? Which should be standard language and standard requirements for, duration ahead of the meeting.
Yep.
On that, toward the end of that one, it should be notices stating the time
Time, yep. I was just
instead
looking
of
at that.
time.
Thank you. B. Yeah, apologize. I'll have to do some research on that one notice that said hearing is to be held. I'd have to dig to figure out what our standard public hearing notice statement looks like. With that, general discussion on 2521, kind of the big addition there and the added requirements. A through what should be D, 4 items. Any issues with those additional special use permit requirements for the application?
I think it all makes sense.
Yeah, looks good.
How do you want to handle this one? Just take a consensus into the next meeting and provide the few red lines to the red lines that we have. So that Kim could come with the next one with a clean copy and it wouldn't take any discussion. It could just be a vote.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay. I have our tweaks. Carl, you good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just
Consensus?
wondering, is that then to be a public hearing? Because this is a zoning ordinance amendment?
We might have to package it with, yeah, anything else we have before the public, but yes. Make it official, but we have consensus on our general acceptance and a few red lines. That gets us to 11D, election of officers. I think we are in agreement that we will push that to the March meeting. You have a full team and the capability of the new member be in attendance. Yes?
I agree, yes.
Agreed.
Consensus move to March. With our agreement about the 16th February special, do we also want to take item E to March with the election of officers, just to line up everybody on the full calendar of meetings for 2022 and 3? Another admin topic with the
Get that
bylaws.
business out of our way.
Because that takes a full resolution to do the schedule.
Which is included.
Can we do a resolution without the supermajority?
Mhm. That's only the bylaws that can't be handled.
Wednesday, just like we discussed. I don't have any issue with executing that. Is there any change to the schedule or recommended going back to Wednesdays? And there's the full slate.
Yeah. Looks good.
How about we formalize that with a motion to adopt that resolution, and we'll formalize it with a hard copy tonight, yeah? Okay, so we'll want to do that, but can I have a motion to adopt that resolution, please?
I'll make the motion to adopt a resolution to push forward these dates for our next year meetings.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? We take a roll call on that, please.
Darrow,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Angus is not available. Robo.
Yes.
Eaton is not available. Okay,
Mike, actually, secretary, yes. You'll notice that that is your resolution to execute.
and I have your. I
He's
have
actually
his,
got a hard copy as well in his
Okay.
package. So, you know,
all right,
thank you. Okay, item E complete. That leaves just F. Bylaws yearly review. Is there a desire? We can probably get through the red lines. We're going to defer the vote, but we could get through the red lines if you like in the 13 minutes we have remaining. If you'd like to proceed with that. To just make it a formal vote when we have a full team.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so looking There's just the note that, as Lois pointed out earlier, it is 2/3 of our 7 planned. So we need 5 to adopt. We won't be doing that tonight, but we will look at section 1, paragraph F and G with the proposed changes to give the flexibility to the board and the PC to fill up our slate without it being a board member. That's really the proposal. I don't know that it's, I hadn't thought about it actually before yesterday. Do we want to do that?
I don't particularly like that idea. I think it's important that we have representation at the board. It's been a huge problem all along, the communication between us and the board. To lose, to go farther down that rabbit hole, to lose more of that, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I suggested that a while ago, and then I went to this seminar on how to avoid legal issues. And that came up, and there's 2 sides. Yes, it's good to have a board member there to help you understand what the board's position is. The bad side of that is that board member could have undue influence on the members of the planning commission and should not be there. You should not be being influenced by board members. So there's 2 sides to that story from the legal people. So yes, one, that's a good idea, and the other is, no, it's not, because the board member could have undue influence on the planning commission. I'm in favor personally of the board of having one that we can understand if we get into a situation that's, well, if we can go and do all this work and the board's going to not approve it because they have a different idea. So there's 2 sides to that. I fall on having a board member here.
I want
Keep
to
in
point,
mind that that seminar that went to, it's right, I was in writing, it's not a good idea. But for that purpose is they could have undue influence. And I don't think that would be the case with us.
I want to point out that right in the Township Guide to Planning and Zoning book that they hand all of us, on page 68, the very last paragraph, the very first sentence in the very last paragraph says, the act requires one township board member to be on the planning commission. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I know this isn't the exact law, but they're pointing out that that's,
I agree, yeah, but to say that, it's, I'm just saying that seminar said that's not necessarily a good idea, but then the other side, it is a good idea. So if this says we need it, yeah, I agree. I want one.
I think unless that said person's gonna offer me a new boat or convertible, that I'm not gonna be that influenced by it. So I think we're good.
I'm in agreement. I think it's been a gaping hole in our ability to communicate and stay aligned with the board and keep the tension out of the 2 organizations. So I think it's been a struggle that could be mitigated, and it is 1 of 7,
right,
and they only get their 1 vote.
right.
I don't think they can be here driving the bus. They can influence, but no more than any one of us. Stating your case and trying to sway it, but I don't see the board driving us through 1 out of 7 members, and I'd rather have the connectivity. So I think our consensus then on the first 2 shall be, no, we want to go back to the keep it the way it is. Yeah,
I agree.
consensus? How about, well, Friday, we've already discussed that, section 3. That's gonna get scratched and stay Wednesdays. Duties of PC. There is just a short couple on section 8, education.
Let's
It's
see.
softening that a little bit. The current language is training shall be provided. to may be provided during each regular meeting of the PC by planning zoning administrator or designee. So it's just, it's softening that a little bit to take it out of the requirement and to make it a possibility. I'd be fine with that change.
I'd go with that one.
Looks good.
Okay. So I will go back to Kim, who made these red lines, and suggest that we want to keep all the same, except we agree on the section 8. No vote available for the bylaws, so we'll defer that. Gets us to item 12, next meeting. Discounting a special, which we know is just a proposed right now for the 16th. The next meeting would be Wednesday, March 2nd. Any discussion or tweaks there? All right, that would be standard. With that, yes,
March
sir.
2nd,
Yes,
for the next meeting?
yes.
I'm confused.
The next regular
I thought we
meeting.
said right back here, the red line is, so the meetings will be on Friday.
No, we had agreed that we're going to keep them Wednesdays,
Oh, okay, so that's out.
which is also aligned with the resolution,
Okay, good.
even though March is on last year's calendar. The resolution picks up for April, I believe.
Okay,
So no, back to Wednesdays,
March 2nd, at 7 or 6?
7,
7.
and stand by for communication and a public notice on the 16th for the first special for master plan only. With that, thank you, everybody. That was well timed. We'd like to open it back up for public comment. We have anybody?
Hi, Lisa Bowerman, 8306 Crisp Road. I just had a question. I wanted to ask last in December, but I didn't ask this question, but I had it down. So regarding that proposal on Crisp Road and 72, is there a difference between campground and RV park? Is there, because on their permit, they want a campground, and then in all the other stuff, it's an RV park model. And so what was proposed there was no tents and people pulling it out. There were park models that can go there, like mobile home. So it necessarily wasn't going to be people pulling in and out all the time, though. I'm pretty sure those were all going to stay there. And if you look at his other resorts down in Florida, in the horse area, they're all, it's a mobile home that can be moved, but very rarely is moved. And so it would just, and there's cement slabs, and like you said, there's no green space. There's no place to dump. So my question, I think, is campground and RV park different when you're doing a permit?
And help me out, but my understanding of the ordinance is this would be put in, if you look in the ordinance, it's going to say commercial campground.
Okay,
What
Okay,
falls under the umbrella of a commercial campground is all of those things.
okay,
Tent,
okay,
campsite, like we would traditionally think about it,
Yes.
or slabs with RVs parked on them would also be
okay, so that is
under that
under that
same
umbrella,
umbrella, which is why we're kind of talking tonight about,
commercial,
are there limitations or restrictions or, a certain hurdle height that we would want them to meet to make sure that 305 slabs on 35 acres with nothing but a gravel driveway is probably not where we
Okay,
want to
that
go.
was, I get that now. I get it.
On a side note, though, the luxury RV place,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure they don't allow tents.
No, and they have a green space and they have a pond and,
Yeah.
you know, they just have, correct me if I'm wrong, but they just have one entrance in and out of there. They're not disrupting people
Yeah.
around them.
Yeah,
Correct.
correct.
And on another note, Crisp Road, so when this proposal was coming in, people said to me, oh, just think of all the tax base, you know, when you're talking to other people. They're like, just think of all the tax base you get, you can fix your road. And I said, well, it's not that easy. And then when I read the engineer report, you know, there were so many red lines in there for me, like that road cannot be even paved on my side. See, and I live on the other end. I live closer to Williamsburg Road. I'm not looking at him like everybody else is. And I'm still upset on the other end of the road. But so I've been there for almost 37 years. I can't quite remember 34 years ago, 30 to 34 years, you know, that road was going to be paved and it was all marked out. You guys might know the story. It was all marked to be paved. And that's back when the township and the county met funds. And so there was barely any people on that road. We were full-time residents. I think there were two other. And then further down the road, it was all two-track, you know, that they didn't plow beyond across more.
Seasonal road.
Seasonal
over the
road,
hill.
yeah,
Yep.
down there. So there weren't very many people on the road, but it was gonna be paved and a couple people that were renters and a couple other people didn't want it paved. And unless the state law changed, the road, I live on the south side of Crisp Road, and I actually have more property into the road. So all the people on that side do. The road actually goes north,
Mhm.
and you cannot pave a road unless you put it in its proper coordinates. And so the stakes were all outside the people on the north side, right outside, you know, the 10-foot, whatever. You know, you walk inside your thing, there's a stake. You know, that's not what the road was gonna be, but that was the 10-foot line. And so, you know, rightly so, they got mad. And so the township said, well, forget you people. We got other people that want to pave their roads. So they pulled the stakes and everybody went to whatever road they were going to pave. So you can't just fix Crisp Road. And I can't speak to past Moore Road on because I just knew of the people and us on between Williamsburg Road and Moore Road. The rest of the way, you know, I know they're going to take down the big trees, which are now falling down, the maples. So that was another just a point that I wanted to get out there is that you just can't fix Crisp Road. And there's no way that those people were not going to be on Crisp Road. Even when they said there was going to be a emergency access. I don't know what an emergency access looks like, but you can, even if there was a gate, I've seen emergency roads with just a little gate over it and people drive around it. I mean, there's no way that amount of people would not use Crisp Road. And it can't be fixed. So with that, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Anyone else, please?
We do have one on
Yes, thank
with
you.
their hand up. Linda?
Yes, Linda Slopsima. I wanted to make some comments about, I supplied quite a bit of detail regarding feedback on the marijuana ordinance back in the December timeframe. And my notes were incorporated into the packets for the January meeting where I realized you did not meet. And then also they were in the packet for today's meeting. And, you know, those notes were a compilation of a lot of discussion from the public meeting last summer on the marijuana draft ordinances, where there was a lot of the public was felt that there was insufficiency in the ordinance. Additionally, a lot of time and effort was spent going to visit other communities that had approved marijuana and try and learn from them what worked well and what did not work well. And so I tried to put together a good list of that. And I'm not sure exactly what's happened since there was no meeting in January, but I am concerned that I don't really see any evidence of incorporating any of those lessons learned or the community feedback that was, all that information was gathered in the last 6 months. So I do encourage you to reread that list. I'm sure my list didn't have everything on it, but at least it's a place to start. And I would encourage you to give some careful thought to making sure that you are protecting all people's property rights, not just the business owners for marijuana. Secondly, I thought it was interesting when I read the information from Mr. Grobel that under economic development, there was specifically a notation that said you should work towards clustering related businesses. And I believe this also relates to many of the lessons learned when we went to different communities that had marijuana. They said one of the keys to being able to enforce their zoning and deal with any criminal activity was to keep the facilities in close proximity to one another instead of just letting them be anywhere in the community. And I continue to be very concerned about the quantity of permits that we're allowing being over the number of 100. And if you allow that to be spread throughout the agricultural district, that's about 15 square miles. That's a lot of area to cover considering we have no community policing in our community. And I think the fastest you can ever expect the Grand Traverse County Sheriff to show up is probably at least 20 minutes. So I would just encourage you to take a close look at that as you move forward. I am encouraged that you're going to separate off your master planning activity from your regular agenda. So hopefully you'll have more time to look at these issues in detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Anybody else? Huh?
No.
I have a question.
Well timed. Commission discussion.
You mentioned RV parks and commercial campground. One of the same or under the same regulation.
Within our ordinance, I believe they are.
I was curious under the state. Because I've been in an RV campground, it's entirely different than I've been in an RV commercial park. And it's entirely different than a campground. It's not the same. It has it has big trailers on pads that are there for 3-4 months at a time, 6 months at a time. Some are there all year round. They rent the spot and they have their park model. As a campground is strictly for campers that come in and stay for a couple of weeks and leave. It's different tents, so it's still, some RV units, but it's not, I just wonder if there is, I'm gonna look it up.
I'm not saying we can't make that distinction.
I'm
Within
just
the
wondering if it is made by the state, because what's down there in Acme Township is an RV park. It's not a campground. So there's a difference.
I haven't pulled Acme Township to
And
figure out how that park is in there and under what zoning.
Yeah, that's kind of important. We address those, make sure we have those covered properly.
Fair enough.
Because what they were saying on that proposal is they were going to have park models that were going to be there basically all year round, and people could run them for 6 months at a time. That could be farm workers, things. I don't know. I need more information. I'll look into that.
Regardless of what they were gonna do there, it was gonna be a lot of cars and or campers coming in and out onto M72.
Well, I've driven through there a couple of times, and those people are there for the summer. They don't drive their RVs in there and out of there. They're hooked up electricity, they got the little units there with stuff on it, with their water, all their hookups, and they have their cars. They go in and out with their cars. I have no idea how many spots are in there. I thought, I know,
It's about 150.
I believe the people rent, either own them or rent them for the
They own
whole
it.
season.
Yeah, they're like 90,000 a year.
Yeah.
You get a little storage unit. Yeah.
I'll look into
Plus,
that.
plus keep in mind, your camper has to be 3 years or newer or something crazy. So,
50 feet
um,
or something.
so my whole thing is like with the proposed campground is regardless of what they do, you're talking about 300 campsites plus, and if each campsite has a car, well, that's, but if each campsite has 2 cars, and or pulling a camper in and out, even if they have 300 plus park models that are there permanently, you still have 1 to 2 cars coming and going per park model, in addition to all those units that the same thing, 1 or 2 cars there, plus visitors, plus whatever. That is a lot of traffic
Yeah. Well,
coming
they-
in and out of there.
I
period.
recall they didn't say there's gonna be a lot of park models, they said some.
Yeah, they're not, I mean, I know what, I'm pretty sure I know what they're planning on doing. I mean, there's a lot of, the equestrian festival is huge and it's a lot of money, and the people that work it, the people that visit it, the people that bring their horses, I mean, there's lots and lots of money there.
Well, they could be seasonal workers staying there too.
Yeah, that too.
Any other commission discussions before we wrap up? I'm sorry, I don't exactly know what item 15, continuing education year in review is.
Postpone.
I will defer that one to Madam Chair and we'll pick that one up in March. With that, not bad on the timing. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate the public's attendance. And with that, we will adjourn at 8:10. Well, thank you all for the